threw a kid through a plate glass window at a house party. The glass exploded across the front lawn, and the kid landed on his back in the bushes with blood pouring down his face, and Drew was standing over him with his fists still clenched, screaming at him. People were running. Someone was calling 911. I grabbed Drew by the arm and dragged him around the side of the house so hard he stumbled. Someone had already called the cops. I could hear sirens and blue light pulsed through the trees at the end of the block, and as soon as he realized what he had just done, it all hit him at once. Drew grabbed me by both shoulders and shook me so hard my teeth rattled, tears and snot running down his face. "If this goes on my record, I lose my scholarship. You don't have anything to lose. I have everything on the line. You owe me this." I shoved him off me, and my heart was pounding with panic. "I have a scholarship too. I know, and I'll protect it. I swear. I'll go to coach the second year out, and I'll help you prove it wasn't you. I'll tell them everything. I just need time." He dropped to his knees on the pavement and gripped the front of my jacket with both fists. "1 month. You'll do 1 month, and when you get out, I will fix everything. Your scholarship, your girl, your spot. I swear on my life." Drew had been my best friend since 3rd grade. The sirens were on our street. I grabbed the front of his shirt and pulled him up off his knees. I was terrified of what I was about to do, but I said yes. I took the plea. 1 month in juvenile detention. My lawyer told me I was throwing my future away, and I signed the paper anyway. My mom was in the front row, and when the judge read the sentence, she let out a sob so loud the whole courtroom turned, and the guilt hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. Drew was in the back row with his eyes on the floor, and he wouldn't look at me. My girlfriend grabbed both my hands in the hallway. She pressed her forehead against mine. 1 month is nothing. I'll wait. She squeezed my hands so hard her rings dug into my fingers. Write me every day, every day. She kissed me, and I held on, and the grief of leaving her was so sharp it tasted like metal. Drew was waiting at the bottom of the courthouse steps. He pulled me into a hug and gripped the back of my head. 1 month. I'll be here every single week. You won't even notice you're gone. He grabbed the front of my jacket and shook it gently. Your spot at the table, your seat in the locker room. I'll keep it all warm. He tapped the team logo over my chest. And the second you're out, I go to coach and we fix this. They put me in a van with blacked out windows, and I was so terrified my teeth were chattering. I slammed my palm against the glass. My mom was on the sidewalk rocking back and forth, and Drew was next to her with his hand on her shoulder. The van turned the corner and they disappeared, and I slammed my palm against the glass one more time, and nobody was there to see it. The facility smelled like bleach and sweat. They took my clothes and my phone and gave me a gray jumpsuit. A kid twice my size looked up from his bunk when they put me in my cell. "What are you in for?" I couldn't answer because my jaw was locked shut. He laughed. "You'll talk eventually." I lay on the mattress and pulled the blanket over my head, and I was so scared I shook until the lights went out. Someone was crying 3 cells down. A guard's boots echoed in the hallway. I kept shaking in the dark and told myself Drew would fix this. Drew promised. The lights came on at 6 and went off at 10, and every hour between was the same gray walls and the same gray food. Visiting day was Saturday. I showered and combed my hair and sat at a table in the visiting room, and every time the door opened, I jerked upright. Other kids' moms and girlfriends and brothers filed in and hugged them. An hour passed. The door stopped opening. The room emptied. A guard tapped my shoulder. "Nobody's coming, kid. Back to your unit." The humiliation burned so hot my face went red. I shoved back from the table so hard the chair flipped, and I stormed back to my bunk and punched my pillow until the seam split. 1 letter from Drew, 3 sentences. "Holding it down for you, bro. Everyone says hi. Miss you." I pinned it to the wall and read it so many times the paper went soft. I called Drew from the facility phone, and he didn't pick up. I called again. Voicemail. I left a message. "Drew, pick up the phone. I'm in here for you." I called my girlfriend. She picked up and sounded far away. "Things are just really busy." I could hear music in the background and a laugh that sounded like Drew's, and she said she had to go, and the line went dead. And I was so sick with dread, I slammed the phone into the receiver so hard the cradle cracked. My mom visited. She sat across from me, and she looked like she'd aged 5 years. She reached across and held my hands and wouldn't look at me. "What?" She pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. A video. I pressed play, and my hands started shaking so hard I dropped the phone on the table. Drew at a house party. My jacket on his back. My girlfriend under his arm. My teammates around him. He was standing on a table doing an impression of someone, and everyone was laughing, and the camera panned to my girlfriend, and she was leaning into his chest, wiping tears from laughing, and he leaned down and kissed the top of her head, and the room cheered. He was doing my celebration, the one I did after every touchdown. Arms out, spin, point at the crowd. He'd stolen that too. I shoved the phone across the table so hard it almost went off the edge. "When was this?" "2 weeks after your hearing." She pressed her hands flat on the table. "A parent sent it to me. He's been telling everyone you were violent, that you attacked someone at the party, and and he was scared of you. I slammed my fist on the table and the guard flinched. He said he'd protect my scholarship. Baby, she squeezed my hands. He went to coach with your recommendation letters. He used them to apply for your spot. He has your scholarship. I shoved back so hard the chair tipped and the guard stepped toward us. I grabbed the table edge and pulled myself back and pressed my forehead against the metal and closed my eyes because Drew had used my own letters to steal my future. A kid from my school got transferred in. He told me Drew had been telling everyone I was dangerous, that I snapped at the party, that he'd been scared of me for years, that he needed a restraining order. I counted the days on the wall next to my bed, scratched them in with a pen cap. Every mark was one day closer to making Drew answer for what he did. Release day. My mom was in the parking lot. Nobody else came. I shoved through the gate and the sun hit my face, and my mom sprinted across the parking lot and crashed into me, and I could feel how much weight she'd lost. She drove me home. I drove to school, and my hands were strangling the steering wheel. I shoved through the front doors, and the hallway went quiet. A girl I'd known since middle school crossed to the other side when she saw me. My old lab partner grabbed his bag and walked the other direction. I passed my English teacher and said good morning, and she flinched and looked at the floor. I turned the corner toward the cafeteria and stopped dead. My lunch table, Drew in the center, my jacket on his back, my girlfriend next to him, my teammates around him laughing. He had taken everything, and I was so furious, I kicked the cafeteria door open so hard it cracked against the wall. I shoved through the cafeteria doors and walked straight to the table, and every step felt like concrete. The table went silent. My girlfriend pulled her head off Drew's shoulder, and her face went pale. Drew looked up at me, and his face was blank. Oh, hey man, good to see you. How was it? My scholarship. Dude, you were gone. Coach had to fill it. You used my recommendation letters. He shrugged. Things happen. You said you'd go to coach. You said you'd fix everything. And it is. He leaned back and spread his arms across the bench. I'm here, aren't I? He picked up his drink and took a long sip and smiled at me like I was a stranger asking for directions. Every person at that table dropped their eyes except Drew. I set my tray down and turned and shoved through the cafeteria doors and bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper. I went to coach's office. He leaned back in his chair. Drew came to me with strong letters and a clean record. The scholarship was reassigned. I gripped the arms of the chair. Those were my letters. I wrote those essays. That was my scholarship. I understand how you feel, but the deadline for reinstatement is end of this week. You'd need Drew to withdraw his application, and I'd need proof the original recommendation was yours.